The broadcast. I'll come back to you in just a bit. There have been some who have in fact asked government for a rethink about the indexation removal, but the finance minister, Ms. Sitharaman, is not keen on a rethink. In fact, the government has defended the indexation removal. That information has been brought to us by my colleague Pallavi Ghosh, who's with us on the broadcast. Pallavi, on what grounds is the defense really coming in on this account?
See, there are two grounds essentially on which this budget is being attacked by the opposition parties. One, of course, is that it is a budget which is only focusing on Andhra Pradesh and Bihar, and Nirmala Sitharaman has been saying that on the floor of the House, and also when we were spoken to, she made it very clear that give me one instance of any other finance minister who has actually mentioned all the states. And, you know, ongoing projects, the benefits of the new projects of the government and an increase in allocation are going to accrue not just to Andhra Pradesh or to Bihar, it's actually going to go to all the states, for example, the Awas Yojana. But let's talk about the second big issue, and that is about the indexation which has been removed. That has been mired in a lot of controversy. Real estate is a kind of a consolation and a deep investment as far as the people are concerned. It's not just about those who are the real estate dabblers who are involved in that, or the property dealers, property agents, but even the common man. Very often the middle class buys property, more than one or two, in the hope that at least one of them will ensure a kind of a social security for future. So there has been a lot of criticism of the removal of indexation, and there has been this whole question which has been raised about whether the government could possibly do a rethink. Well, what we are now learning is that it's highly unlikely. As of now, there's no rethink which is being planned, despite the fact that the real sector representatives have been reaching out to the finance minister and to the finance ministry. We have put out, Griha, the details and some of the examples which the government is offering, the Ministry of Finance is offering, but why, at the end of the day, the removal of indexation actually is going to end up benefiting in terms of tax rebates. There's only one rider over here. In case the price in the assets, in this case we are talking about land, does not increase, that is where the earlier regime, before the removal of indexation, could have benefited. But we all know that property is one such thing which even during the bad times does see a rise. So therefore the finance ministry and the government concludes that in the long run, the indexation is actually going to, removal of it is going to give you larger returns in terms of capital gains, in sharp contrast to the earlier one when this indexation was very much in place.
Right. Pallavi and Aman, I'd request you to stay on with us. We are getting more reactions on this story that we continue to track.
The criticism that is coming of this budget from the opposition today, so Mr. Kharge also speak that many states have not got anything, especially Maharashtra, which is also going to elections in a few months. Do you agree with this kind of attack by the opposition?
All this is being raised only because the elections are around the corner in Maharashtra, Haryana and some other states. And therefore, just to say that, you know, Maharashtra has been ignored is completely a wrong thing to say. Just a few days before the budget started, the Prime Minister came to Mumbai and I think did the foundation stone and inauguration of projects of more than 1 lakh crores. There's a new port coming up on the western coast, and that is in Maharashtra, Vadavan, and that port alone is worth 76,000 crores, which is to be funded by the government of India. And that port will create, and all the other peripheral infrastructure and industries around it will create more than 10 lakh direct indirect jobs. So because the election is around the corner, these kinds of things are being said. I told the finance minister that in her reply, she should come out with all these facts so that automatically all the speculation and all this wrong publicity which is being done by the Congress and the other opposition parties should stop.
Well, if there's no discrimination in the budget, I'll have to go and check the meaning of the word discrimination in the dictionary once again. Discrimination is writ large over the budget. It's a budget which is indicative of the coalition compulsions of the current NDA-BJP government. And as I said yesterday, it's a classical case, as the English proverb says, of the tail wagging the dog.
Everybody has welcomed the budget. You see all the print media, you see there are some things in the budget. For instance, maybe you should have got more allocation but you know, a budget is an exercise in realistic housekeeping. If your resources are limitless, so far, because of this very strong fiscal consolidation, that was shown in the last several years, we were able to navigate from an economy which was in the fragile 5 to a 5th largest economy. And as the IMF says, in the coming time, we'll be the 3rd largest economy. Now, in order to do that, you have to behave responsibly.
Let me take this back to my colleagues, Aman and Pallavi, who continue to be with us. Aman, is this tussle between the opposition and the government somehow getting lost in just this two states aspect? Because there is more to the budget than just this. Now, the government is steadfast in giving its coalition partners what is due. But Bihar still doesn't have a special status. And that is the exact same point that has been raised by Nitish Kumar's contemporaries in the state of Bihar. Is that going to spiral out of control today as well, now that the discussions are going to continue in the parliament over the budget?
See, Greya, obviously there are coalition compulsions, and that is why we see this huge allocation for Bihar, 26,000 crore for highways, 21,000 crore for a power plant, 11,000 crore for flood relief, nearly rupees 1 lakh crore in all for Bihar, if calculate, we put everything together. Similarly, for Andhra Pradesh, 15,000 crore for building a new state capital. Polavaram project has been mentioned that the government will help with all the assistance it can. So obviously there were coalition compulsions, but now government sources are also making it very clear. Look, Andhra, there are some commitments to Andhra. Since the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act, there have been these commitments, and the centre is duty bound to fulfill those commitments. And that is why in this budget, the special focus on Andhra there has been. Bihar, government sources say, has been a long neglected state. There is a dire need for flood relief there. Who can deny that floods in Kosi are ravaging Bihar every year, and the state desperately needs help from the centre. So that is also very clear that the government is saying, yes, these two states are under focus, but that's also because of certain specific reasons apart from coalition compulsions. What is irking the government right now? I think what is bothering the government is this opposition's narrative that the poll-bound states, Maharashtra, Jharkhand, Haryana, Delhi, they have been ignored, and we see Raghav Chadda speaking to us yesterday saying Delhi has not got anything. Delhi is going to elections in February. Dipender Hooda saying that Haryana will also forget BJP in 2 months, like BJP has forgotten Haryana in this budget. I think this is something that the government is really keen to address, say that no state has been ignored. If you read the fine print of the budget, fine print of the vote on account, and the projects which have been announced in the interim, you will see that every state has got something. And of course, the largest schemes of the government which have been announced are there for every state, not just for one particular state.
Absolutely. And Pallavi, if we actually take on from that very point, now that elections are due in these 4 states and, the entire country saw a bit of churning from the opposition side, and that's what emboldened the opposition. What the Congress party and in turn the India bloc is doing is also suggesting that there is a lot amiss when it comes to the fund allocation for, let's say, a state like Andhra Pradesh as well. But why nothing from Maharashtra? Because Maharashtra BJP somewhat came back, but there was a huge furor and there was probably a fence-sitter exercise when it came to the general elections this time around.
Well, the government and the finance ministry certainly thinks, and this is something which the finance minister herself made it very clear in Rajya Sabha, that, they have been Congress finance ministers. You tell me, when they talk about budgetary allocation, have they taken the names of all the states of the country? Just because I did not take the name of other states doesn't mean that they are not getting funds. These are some things which are given by the Finance Commission. And the second important thing, since we are all talking about Maharashtra, what the finance minister has made it very clear that when the Prime Minister recently visited Maharashtra, even before the budget was presented, at least 12 to 13 schemes were announced by him. There are ongoing projects which are going on in the state. Those projects need to be completed, and the government will, of course, keep on giving them those finances as it is required, or in some cases also arrange for those finances if it's required, say from the World Bank or the IMF, and so on and so forth. And likewise is the picture as far as other states are concerned. That's one point. The second point in a rebuttal which they're giving to the opposition parties is that, there are projects and increased budgetary allocation for many of the flagship programs of the government, like the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, or say even a Ujjwala Yojana. The money which has been accrued to them by way of budgetary allocation has increased, but that's not going to be reserved only for, say, an Andhra Pradesh or for Bihar or for BJP ruled state. It is up to the states where they give a petition to the centre and say, okay, we require these amount of funds, which is going to be given to them. And third and most important, the point which they are raising is that there was nothing stopping the Congress ruled states, for example, to actually attend the Niti Aayog meeting on 27, because that's the platform where you can have a direct